Christopher Nolan has decided to follow up his billion-dollar Oscar darling with a remake of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Interesting choice, and his version is way different. Christopher Nolan is one of the few filmmakers that can get a lot of general audience members in the seat purely with his name. He could have done whatever he wanted here, and so taking on the ancient Greek epic of the Odyssey was an interesting choice. I definitely wanted to see how he was going to adapt it. I have not read the original story, but it's practically impossible not to get the general gist of it just by being a human who has access to information. Nolan is one of my favorite directors, although I haven't been as much into his films lately as I used to be. Most of my favorite movies of his are his older ones: Memento, The Prestige, The Dark Knight, Inception, Interstellar. I love a lot of his earlier work. Wasn't a big fan of Dunkirk, just not really my kind of thing. Actively, greatly disliked Tenet. I liked Oppenheimer, but not one of my absolute favorites of his. And while The Odyssey still doesn't crack into my absolute top tier of Nolan, it was a really damn good time. It is epic in pretty much every sense of the word. This is nearly 3 hours long, and while I could tell, I was never bored for a moment. It really does move at an incredible pace. The way this story is told of this man trying to return home to his family after the Trojan War, and all of the obstacles that he encounters. Of course, it's Christopher Nolan. It's not possible for him to tell a movie just linearly, so we get multiple perspectives and flashbacks and timelines. We've got Odysseus in the present. We've got flashbacks showing us the Trojan War and what led him to where he is now. And then we also follow his son Telemachus, played by Tom Holland, and his mother Penelope, played by Anne Hathaway, and the people who are trying to marry her now that Odysseus seems to be out of the picture, and what's going on back in their homeland of Ithaca. And you've got all these stories intertwining, and if that's how the original story was, then Nolan was clearly a great fit for it. Where to even begin with the cast? I mean, obviously, Matt Damon as Odysseus, he is great. He has so much strength to him as a character and his determination to fight through all of these obstacles. He is shown to be such an honorable man who, when he hunts, always plucks his bowstring to alert his prey that he's there because he wants it to be a fair fight. It's almost like a compulsion. There's a time where he almost doesn't do it, and then he just kind of he can't help himself. He has to do that. But he's also a man who has to make a lot of hard decisions, and there's a lot of push and pull between him and Himesh Patel, who's playing basically his second in command, as he's got to prioritize lives and decide what risks to take and whether or not he should tell his men about those kind of risks that he's taking and what really are the best choices for how to get them supplies, how to get themselves home. He has a lot of hard decisions to make. He has a lot of trauma from the war. He's so dedicated to getting home and seeing his family again after so long, but he also has this internal struggle of feeling like he's such a different person now than when he left. The world is different now as a result of this war, as a result of his very actions. He's afraid to even see his family again. How badly does he want to get home deep down? There's a lot going on with him, and Matt Damon is just such a likable actor. He's great in this leading role. Anne Hathaway is great, somebody who has stayed loyal to her husband after he's been gone for so long and wants nothing more than for him to return, and is so sick of all of these suitors here trying to marry her. She knows none of them have proper intentions. They're just after power, and she has one scene in particular where she gets really angry and emotional. She's really good. Robert Pattinson is one of those suitors. He's a ton of fun. There are so many actors to cover here. Lupita Nyong'o, Elliot Page, Charlize Theron. I mean, just look at this shit. Samantha Morton, John Leguizamo, Zendaya, Benny Safdie, John Bernthal, Corey Hawkins, Mia Goth, Logan Marshall Green. I think he had one line. I think that guy might have had one line. So many of these actors have very small roles, but they make them count. They definitely stand out. It's such a fantastic cast. They make their scenes memorable, like Benny Safdie as Agamemnon, and very little actual screen time. Doesn't do much. We don't really know much about him, but just from the way some of these scenes are constructed, there's a scene where some gates open and you just see Agamemnon standing there with his army behind him, And it looks so fucking cool. He's got so much aura oozing off of him. It's like, I don't even need to know anything about this guy. We haven't even really gotten like a proper shot of his face yet. He's always had his helmet on. But he's so cool just from that shot alone. You got Samantha Morton as Cersei, and again, with just one scene, you're able to get what you need to know about these people, and they really sell these characters with their performances, especially with Odysseus's journey. So much of it is them landing in a place, whatever is there wants to kill them horribly, and then they gotta book it out of there ASAP. That's kind of happening over and over again. But it is made very entertaining with the way Nolan handles the spectacle, and because of all these actors' performances, you get things like the Cyclops, which is terrifying. I would love a full behind the scenes look at exactly how they did this, because this thing, Nolan must have taken his Oppenheimer money to go out there, search the world, and find a Cyclops. I am convinced that thing was fucking real. It looks so good. Like, whatever they built here, however they made it work, it's clearly a legitimate practical effect, and it looks so uncanny. It made me uncomfortable to look at it because it looks so real. And you can see on the actors' faces that they are looking at something that's actually there because they look terrified, and it just feels like it has so much weight and presence in the way that it's shot and lit and the way it moves and behaves. It feels like a real creature, and it just captures that beautifully. There's these giant guys in armor. We don't know who they are. We don't know anything about them, but they're an obstacle. Matt Damon's journey here is all about all of these obstacles, whether it's them or a witch or these sea monsters, this monster that comes out of the mountain walls, which is just, again, horrifying. There are scenes in this that are basically like monster movies. One scene in particular that's just straight up body horror, as human bodies are being twisted and contorted into something else, and the way it's done, the effects on that, again, look so convincing. It was awesome. It's a kind of story that could get a little repetitive, like, oh, I wonder what the next thing they're gonna run into is, but it's just handled so well in this epic blockbuster fashion with these incredible effects. It's a beautiful looking movie. Great locations, again, actually filmed on so many real locations, making it feel like a real journey that's taking its toll on these men. When you get these storms that capture them in the middle of the ocean, and lightning and waves and rain, it feels like they're truly stuck in the middle of a hopeless situation, just the way that it's shot, the sound design on all of that. And it definitely has to move between things at a pretty quick pace. And I suppose if there are people out there who don't know anything about any of this, about Greek mythology in the slightest, there could be some confusion. Like if you've never heard of the concept of a siren and they start talking about the siren song, maybe you're not going to know what they're talking about. I think these things are pretty common knowledge enough to where people are going to get the general idea of most of this. But even for me, as somebody who knows a decent amount about all these concepts, just doesn't know all the details of the Odyssey in particular, a lot of the details that are lacking here just make me want to look into it more and make me want to read the original more. Like, there are some characters that they encounter for just a little while that I would like to know more about, but there's also only so much time you can really fit into the movie without just telling us all these character backstories extensively. And what is there is enough for what the movie is trying to communicate, and what isn't there is intriguing enough to make me want to learn more from other sources. It's edited so well, it really moves for such a long movie, cutting back and forth between his adventure, where he is now, what's going on back in his homeland, and all the political scheming that really keeps it fresh from scene to scene. And apparently the original rough cut was much longer, but because this was filmed entirely in IMAX, which I'm pretty sure is the first film ever to be entirely in IMAX, it had to be kept under 3 hours because IMAX literally physically cannot go longer than 3 hours. So they had to cut it down to the essentials. And so I'm sure there were extra little details that could have been included, but you gotta account for pacing, how long we're gonna be able to sit in those seats without our asses getting numb, and how they were able to cut this down to make it work as this large epic story that it is pretty impressive. And it's also clear getting to know these characters, following this journey, seeing these themes of war and loyalty and strength, how influential the Odyssey has been on so many stories that came after it. Like, you understand how this maybe not established, but like at least helped to cement many modern tropes. I'm a little mixed on the sound mixing, sound design. I think the music is incredible. A lot of the sound effects make this stuff come to life really, really well. A lot of it is very immersive with how loud a lot of it is. There are times when the characters could be difficult to hear, and I actually didn't mind because they're in a loud room where a lot of people are talking. There's a bunch of partying going on. Of course, it's going to be a little harder to hear them. They're in a cave. It's extremely echoey. He's going for realism with a lot of that sound design, and oftentimes I found it immersive, but there were some times where I literally just couldn't hear what was being said. And this has been such a common complaint with Nolan ever since The Dark Knight Rises, I guess. And I don't really know what's going on with him. There were some moments where, yeah, you gotta really focus and listen up to understand, but I was willing to accept that because I'm enjoying the sound design and the use of music, and there's so much music in the film. Not quite as much as Oppenheimer, but similar to that, in how there's very often music kind of carrying along the pace of the movie. But there are some moments here, like one with Charlize Theron's character. She's talking off screen, we're hearing her dialogue, and the music is swelling, and as it swells, I started to not be able to hear her. She said a couple sentences that I only got a couple words out of here and there. And also, very egregiously, the final couple lines of the whole movie, I had a hard time hearing. And as I was walking out of the theater, I heard the people right behind me. The first things that they said leaving the theater was, there were some weird sound decisions. And I'm like, yeah, that's Christopher Nolan nowadays, apparently. This is just a thing he does now, and I don't get it. I really don't understand. I was fine with it for most of the movie, but the fact that there is that issue at all and that it's been such a consistent thing with him is just so bizarre, because you don't hear that about any other director. No director has a consistent issue like that with something so simple, like, I couldn't hear what the characters said, is not a thing you often hear in movie reviews, and yet it's been what people have been saying about Nolan films for 15 years. And I don't get it. It's going to vary from theater to theater, and it's going to vary from theater to watching it at home. But at least in my theater, this was my experience, and I know I wasn't alone. So I don't know if, like, he thinks it's funny? Is he just fucking with us? He's heard the complaints, and he's like, well, if I'm going to be that guy, I'm just going to lean into it. Whatever. They can listen. They can pay attention. Is it a trick to get us to see it twice? If you don't hear it the first time, you got to buy a second ticket. I don't know what it is, but it is bizarre. Like, at this point, I've just kind of come to accept it. Like, it's one of those things you now go into a Nolan movie expecting. Like, I wonder how loud the music's going to be. And it only really bothered me those couple of times. But definitely, if you're like on the harder side of hearing, good luck. You might just not know what people are saying sometimes. And it's weird. Like, you wrote the dialogue and you told them to say it. I know you want me to hear it. Why are you preventing me from hearing it? It took me a little bit to really get into the movie. Like, the first, 20 minutes was a little exposition heavy. We're with Tom Holland and Anne Hathaway, and there's a lot of talk about, oh, your father left at this point, and the Trojan War ended at this point, and this is what's happening in the country. And we're being told a lot of this. There's a lot that has to be caught up on with the audience. And again, I think they really did the best with what they had here, having to cut such an epic story down into this functional 2-hour, 50-minute movie. But it definitely took me a little bit to get into it. Once we really started following Odysseus and really getting into the main aspect of the journey there and seeing what this world was all about, I really started enjoying myself. But it took like a little bit for me to warm up. I was like, okay, I don't know how much I'm invested in these characters yet at first, but I got really into it after a while, and I was having a really good time. The one character that I didn't care much about was Tom Holland's Telemachus, the son of Odysseus. I don't have a problem with Tom Holland's performance, really. There's nothing that stands out to me that was bad about it. I think he was fine, but I think pretty much all the other major players here were doing a better job than he was. And I mostly just blame the character for all of the adventure that's going along with Odysseus and his pals, and all the political machinations with Robert Pattinson, Anne Hathaway. Much of Tom Holland's character is just, want to find my dad. Gotta get info about my dad. And it's very simple. His side of the story was just more simplistic. Every time we cut over to him, I was less interested in those segments than I was any of the other ones. And so I just don't think Tom Holland had that much to work with here. But he just didn't stand out to me that much, even by the end. Like, whenever he could maybe have a chance to rise up in the climax as the son of Odysseus, who we have been following for part of this movie, who wanted to go out and find his father, who could potentially become the king. Even what he gets to do climactically by the end of the story was super kind of lame, kind of uninteresting. I was like, I just don't really fuck with you at all. Odysseus is way cooler. Way more interested in what that guy's doing. Sorry, you cannot live up to your dad. The only other thing I'd say I'm mixed on, very minor thing, this movie is rated R, but there are moments where it almost feels like Nolan's treating it as if it's PG-13. Like a big battle is happening, a bunch of people keep getting their throats slashed, and there's very little blood. And you don't need to make it a massacre and over-the-top Kill Bill blood sprays going everywhere. But there were so many noticeable moments where it cuts away or it just doesn't show the blood, where it started to feel like, it feels like you are intentionally holding back. And you could go a little harder with this. I don't need it to be a full-on horror gore fest, but it's standing out to me that there should be more blood on screen. It feels like you're trying to rein it in and make it tamer. I don't know why. It is rated R. There is blood plenty of times. It is a story with a lot of violence in it. Why are you holding back? Again, it's a small thing because the violence is there, the action is there, it's entertaining, but they were a couple moments that I noticed that just made me stop and wonder. Kind of took me out of the moment a little bit. Like, why did you cut right there? Why are you so adamant about not showing some of this blood? You're allowed. You're allowed to show the blood, and you're allowed to let me hear what they're saying. So as somebody who had a little bit of skepticism, just because I haven't been into Nolan's films as much lately, and because I do like it when he does his trippy, mind-bending thrillers like Inception or The Prestige, or Tenet, conceptually at least, even though I don't actually like how that movie turned out at all, I wasn't sure about how he was going to handle an adaptation of The Odyssey, but I'm there, no matter what, for anything Nolan does, and I hope it's going to be amazing, and I want to love it, and in this case, I really did enjoy this a lot, especially for being so long. It's impressive that I would say I would happily watch that again pretty soon with no issue. I'm excited to see it again. But this was all just my opinion, and I would love to hear yours as well, whether you agree or disagree. Let's talk about it down in the comments, especially if you know more about the Odyssey, about the source material than I do, how this compares. Could you hear what the actors were saying? Did you have that luxury? Did you get into the Telemachus story more than me? Did you get blown away by the Cyclops effects and all that stuff as much as I did? Leave your thoughts below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you for the next one.